I received the divorce documents through email while I was still stationed overseas. 15 years of marriage terminated in a PDF attachment. My name is Marcus, 43 years old, Master Sergeant with the 101st Airborne. I'd been in Baghdad for just over 5 months when Allison decided she was done with the waiting game. The subject line read, "Time to handle this like adults." The message itself consisted of 3 brief sentences. She'd already submitted the paperwork. She'd already drained our shared bank account. She'd already moved her new boyfriend Kyle into our home in Portland. 15 years gone in 3 sentences. Just like that. I read the email twice, shut my laptop, took a shower in the communal facilities, dressed for my shift, and said nothing to anyone. When I returned to my quarters that night, I answered with a single word, acknowledged. That was it. No argument. No pleading. No threats. Rodriguez, who shared the quarters with me, sensed something was off. "Everything all right, man?" he asked without looking up from his novel. "Yeah," I replied. "Just some issues back home." He nodded, and that was the end of it. Military guys understand when to leave things alone. Truth is, I wasn't caught off guard. 8 months before deployment, things had started shifting. Subtle changes. Allison stopped inquiring about my daily activities, began working late at the law firm where she worked as a paralegal, started attending fitness classes 4 times weekly, but never appeared to lose any weight. New wardrobe. New social circle I never met. New passwords on her devices. I didn't confront her, didn't begin snooping through her messages or tracking her movements. That's not my style. But I wasn't oblivious either. I saw the signs. I just didn't want to believe them. So I made some quiet arrangements of my own. Nothing dramatic, just precautions. I secured vital documents in a storage facility across town. Birth certificate, marriage license, property deed with only my name on it thanks to the VA loan and military benefits paperwork. I relocated my father's pocket watch and my grandmother's antique jewelry to the same facility items that held sentimental value. I also established a separate account at a different financial institution and began diverting a portion of my salary there. Not enough for her to detect, but sufficient that I wouldn't be starting with nothing if the situation deteriorated. The evening before I deployed, she embraced me at the airport and said, "Stay safe, okay?" Her eyes were dry, as if she were bidding farewell to a colleague rather than a husband heading to a war zone. I should have understood then what was happening, but part of me still hoped I was wrong. I wasn't wrong. What she didn't realize was that I had prepared for this eventuality, and what she failed to understand was that I never initiate conflicts, but I do resolve them. I met Allison at a colleague's dinner party in 2008. I was home between tours, staying with my friend Tyler in Portland. She was completing her law degree but ended up working as a paralegal at a corporate firm instead. Less pressure, she explained. We were married 10 months later. Allison used to claim she was proud of my military service, though she never truly comprehended it. Her mother was a university professor, her sister a pediatrician. No military background in her family. She would ask when I planned to get a permanent position, not grasping that after 18 years, the Army was my profession, not just a temporary occupation. We purchased our house in 2012. Nothing extravagant, but it was ours. 3 bedrooms, modest yard, peaceful neighborhood. My name was the only one on the mortgage since the VA loan was under my name, but I added her to the deed because that's what married couples do. They share. We share everything until we don't. My mother passed away a year after our wedding stroke while gardening. My father died 4 years later, lung cancer, though he only smoked cigars on special occasions. They left me some funds, not substantial, but enough that Allison and I could eliminate our educational loans and still have some savings. I deployed 5 times during our marriage. Iraq 3 times, Afghanistan twice. Each time I returned home, Allison seemed slightly more distant, slightly more restless, as if she were playing a character she'd outgrown. "I didn't sign up to be a military spouse," she told me once after I mentioned possibly extending for another 5 years. "I'm exhausted from being on my own constantly." I understood that. I truly did. But the Army was the only environment where I ever felt like I genuinely belonged. I excelled at my role. People relied on me. The Army never questioned my commitment. Never made me feel like I was making the wrong choice. In 2020, things began shifting. Minor stuff initially. Allison became irritated when I called during her friends' evenings. Started discussing how her colleague Jennifer had divorced her husband and was now living her best life. Began making observations about how we no longer had much in common. I proposed counseling. She claimed we were fine, just experiencing a phase. Then came the late evenings at work, the weekends away with friends I'd never met, the new clothing, the gym membership she rarely utilized. I should have confronted her, but that's not how I manage situations. Never have been. My father taught me to think before speaking, to be certain before acting. So I observed and I prepared quietly, because my instincts were telling me something was approaching. And in this life, you learn to trust your instincts. Something was coming. I could feel it in my bones. 3 weeks after receiving the divorce email, I was seated in the mess hall when my phone vibrated a notification from our banking app. Another withdrawal, $92,700, nearly everything that remained. I set my fork down and opened the app. The joint account balance was reduced to $18.45. Our savings, $55,000 we'd accumulated over years, was gone completely, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Jenkins, one of the guys from my unit, glanced over. Bad news. I locked my phone. Nah, just some account stuff. That night, I called our bank from the base communication center. It turned out Allison had been transferring funds for weeks. Small amounts initially, then larger ones. The significant transfers began the day after I deployed. She had it all planned out. The moment I was gone, she started. I hung up and stood in the corridor for a long time, watching guys laughing, calling their children, their wives, their parents' normal life continuing all around me while mine was crumbling. That's when Rodriguez found me. Heard from Jenkins that you looked like you'd seen a ghost at dinner, he said. What's going on? I don't typically share personal matters, but Rodriguez had pulled me out of a dangerous situation in Baghdad once. I trusted him. My wife emptied our accounts and moved her boyfriend into our house, I said. Sent divorce papers while I was on patrol last week. Rodriguez didn't offer the usual platitudes, no, I'm sorry, or that's rough, or you'll find someone better. He just asked, what's your strategy? Not sure yet, I said. He nodded. Let me know if you need anything. That's what I respect about Rodriguez. No bullshit, just support. That night, I couldn't sleep. I retrieved my laptop and logged into our home security system, something Allison probably forgot I could access remotely. The cameras showed an unfamiliar SUV in our driveway, a man I'd never seen before walking our dog, using my coffee mug, wearing my Trailblazers hoodie. And there was Allison, laughing in the kitchen I'd renovated myself during my last leave. Something shifted inside me. Not anger exactly, something colder, more focused. This wasn't just about a broken marriage anymore. This was about respect, about principle. I closed the laptop and took out my phone, made a list. Call Tyler, Army buddy who became an attorney. Check the VA loan terms. Contact Command Sergeant Major about emergency leave. Review home refinance documents Allison mentioned casually last year. Check the security on my military pension accounts. I didn't feel sad anymore. I didn't even feel angry. I felt focused, like I was planning an operation. This wasn't about emotion, now this was about strategy. At 0600 before my shift began, I sent an email to Tyler with the subject line, "Need legal assistance, confidential and urgent." His reply came an hour later. "Call me, secure line only." When I finished that call, I knew precisely what I needed to do. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to threaten. I didn't even need to confront her. I just needed to wait and observe and let her own actions become the trap. Sometimes justice is just patience with a plan. 2 months later, I was back on American soil. I didn't inform Allison I was returning. Didn't call. Didn't text. Just checked into a hotel in downtown Portland under a different name and contacted Tyler. We met at a diner 15 miles outside of town. "You look terrible," he said, sliding into the booth. "Feel terrible too," I replied. Tyler handed me a folder. Everything we discussed. The house deed, loan documents, bank statements, and this. He pulled out a separate paper. "Found something interesting when I was investigating your finances." It was a refinance application with my signature on it, except it wasn't my signature, not quite. Someone had attempted to copy it, but missed details. The middle initial was incorrect, and the stroke pattern wasn't mine. Allison did this. I asked, though I already knew the answer. Tyler nodded. 4 months ago. Used the equity to extract $350,000. Your signature is required for that since the VA loan is in your name only. Forge my signature, take out a loan against our house, then clean out our accounts and divorce me, I said. Busy woman. It gets better, Tyler said. She listed her boyfriend as a co-applicant. Kyle's got a record 3 DUIs and a fraud charge from 2018. This wasn't just betrayal. This was criminal. I took a deep breath. What are my options? Several, Tyler said. But first, you need to decide what you want. I thought about it. I want what's legally mine, and I want her to understand consequences. Tyler smiled. Then here's what we do. The next day, I drove past our house. Kyle's SUV was gone, but Allison's car was in the driveway. I parked down the street and watched for a while, considered knocking on the door, confronting her, but that wasn't the plan. Instead, I drove to the bank, met with the loan officer who had processed the refinance, showed him my military ID, showed him the authentic signature on my driver's license, showed him the forged documents. His face went pale. I'll need to report this immediately. I understand, I said. I've already filed a police report. That night, I received a text from Allison. Who have you been talking to at the bank? Kyle said someone was asking questions. I didn't respond. The following day, I went to the county clerk's office, filed paperwork contesting the refinance due to fraud, registered formal notice that no changes to the property could be made without my presence. The wheels of justice turn slowly, but they do turn. 2 days later, Allison called. I let it go to voicemail. Marcus, we need to talk. The bank called about the house. What are you doing? If this is about the divorce, we can discuss it like adults. Like adults. The same words from her email. I still didn't respond. Tyler called that afternoon. They froze the refinance money. And there's more. Your wife's boyfriend has been driving your truck, right? The one in your name. Yeah. He got pulled over this morning driving on a suspended license from those DUIs. They impounded the vehicle. Good. He also had some interesting items in the truck prescription pads from the law firm where Allison works. They weren't blank. Jesus Christ. What kind of people had they become? I closed my eyes. She's been stealing prescription pads? Looks that way. The police are investigating. I hung up and sat on the edge of the hotel bed. This was growing larger than I'd anticipated. Part of me wanted to call Allison, warn her old habits. But then I remembered the security camera footage. My house. My dog. My life. Given away like it meant nothing. No. This was the path now. I couldn't turn back. And honestly, I didn't want to. I met with the bank fraud investigator the next morning. Name was Morales, tall woman with alert eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. This happens more frequently than you'd think, she said, arranging documents across her desk. Spouse deploys, other spouse sees an opportunity. What happens now? I asked. We've frozen the funds from the fraudulent refinance, but there's an issue. Some of the money's already gone. How much? About half. $172,000. I leaned forward. Where did it go? Morales hesitated. I'm not supposed to share that information. It's my house, my name forged, my money stolen. She nodded slowly, then turned her computer screen toward me. These are the transfers out of the refinance account. I scanned the list. Multiple transfers to someone named Richard Daniels. Not Kyle, someone else I'd never heard of. Who's Richard Daniels? I asked. Morales shrugged. Not my department, but you should ask your attorney to subpoena these records. Another player in this game. How deep did this go? I called Tyler as soon as I left the bank. Richard Daniels, he repeated. Let me run a check. An hour later, he called back. Got it. Richard Daniels is a real estate agent, specializes in quick sales, cash deals. She was planning to sell our house, I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. Looks that way. The deposits were probably earnest money to get him moving on a listing. But here's where it gets interesting. Daniels has done business with Kyle Matthews before. Is that Allison's boyfriend? Yes. They've closed 4 deals together in the past 3 years. This wasn't an affair. This was a scam. A racket targeting military families. I sat down on a park bench, trying to process this information. So this wasn't just Allison leaving me for some guy. This was what? A planned operation? Maybe, Tyler said carefully. I did some digging into Kyle Matthews. He has a pattern gets involved with women going through divorce or with deployed spouses. For cases I found so far, each time, the woman's home gets sold well below market value to one of Daniel's clients. Matthews gets a cut, then he moves on. And Allison? She knew about this. Hard to say. Maybe she's a victim too. Or maybe she's in on it. I wanted to believe she was a victim, but the forged signature, that was deliberate. I rubbed my face. This wasn't just about Allison betraying me anymore. This was something bigger, something calculated. And other military families have been victims. What do we do? I asked. I've already contacted the FBI's Financial Crime Division, Tyler said. This crosses state lines, involves military personnel and VA loans. They're interested. That night, I sat in my hotel room with a whiskey, thinking about everything, wondering if Allison had been playing me our entire marriage or if she'd gotten swept up in Kyle's scheme, wondering if it even mattered. My phone buzzed. Allison again. Marcus, please call me. The bank is saying something about fraud, and Kyle got arrested for driving your truck. I don't understand what's happening. I stared at the message for a long time, then I typed, "Who is Richard Daniels?" 3 dots appeared as she started typing, then stopped. Started again. Stopped. Finally, "I don't know what you're talking about." $172,000, I wrote. Multiple transfers. House listing. No response for 15 minutes. Then, "It's not what you think." It never is it? But sometimes it's worse. I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, Tyler called. FBI wants to meet. They've been investigating Matthews and Daniels for months. You're not the first, but you might be the case that breaks it open. For the first time since receiving that divorce email, I felt something close to satisfaction. Not because my marriage was over, but because the truth was finally emerging. I met with the FBI agents at their field office in Portland. Agent Lawson and Agent Chun. They recorded my statement, took copies of all the documents Tyler and I had gathered. Your case helps establish a pattern, Agent Lawson explained. Shows intent, organization, makes it a conspiracy rather than isolated incidents. What about Allison? I asked. My ex-wife. The agents exchanged looks. We're still determining her level of involvement, Chin said carefully. Did she ever mention financial difficulties? Pressure to sell the house. I thought back. She kept saying we were house poor, that we should downsize. I didn't see the need. Our mortgage payments were manageable on my salary. Those conversations now seemed less like financial planning and more like planting seeds. Lawson made a note. When did that start? About 7 months ago. Around the time she must have met Kyle. And the refinance. Chin asked. Never discussed it with me. She forged my signature while I was deployed. They asked more questions, took more notes. When we finished, Lawson handed me her card. We'll be in touch. In the meantime, don't confront your wife or Matthews. We need to build this case carefully. I nodded. Understood. That evening, I drove to our neighborhood again, parked down the street from our house. Kyle's SUV was back, must have gotten it out of impound. Allison's car was gone. My phone buzzed. Text from Allison. We need to talk in person. Meet me at Willamette Park tomorrow. A meeting. After all this time, what could she possibly say? I showed the text to Tyler over breakfast the next day. Don't go, he advised. Nothing good can come from talking to her right now. I won't, I said. But I want to know what she's doing today while she thinks I'm meeting her. We drove to our house at 9:30 a.m., parked across the street. At 9:45, Allison came out, got in her car, and drove away, heading toward Willamette Park. Now what? Tyler asked. Now we wait, I said. 20 minutes later, a car pulled up, real estate agent logo on the door. Richard Daniels. Kyle came out to greet him. They talked in the driveway, then went inside. The trap was set. All I had to do was spring it. Should we follow them? Tyler asked. I shook my head. No need. I installed security cameras last year. Interior and exterior. They upload to cloud storage. Tyler smiled. You didn't mention that before. Never came up, I said, pulling out my phone. I opened the security app and angled the screen so Tyler could see. Daniels and Kyle were in our living room. Daniels was taking photos. Kyle was pointing at features of the house. I turned up the volume. Should list by the end of the week, Daniels was saying. I've got a buyer interested, already cash offer, as usual. How much? Kyle asked. 450. We list at 500. They offer 450. Everybody's happy. What about the husband? Allison says he's causing trouble. Daniels waved dismissively. Military guys are all the same. They make noise, but they've got deployments, responsibilities. He'll take a settlement to make it go away. If they only knew. I turned to Tyler. You getting this? He was already recording the feed on his phone. Every word. I forwarded the security feed access to Agent Lawson with a short message. Happening now. 30 minutes later, our house was surrounded by FBI vehicles. I watched from down the street as agents led Daniels and Kyle out in handcuffs. My phone rang. Agent Lawson. Got them on tape discussing the fraud scheme, she said. Plus conspiracy, wire fraud, and attempting to sell property under false pretenses. We're going to need a formal statement from you. Of course, I said. And Mr. Thornton? Your wife just arrived at the scene. She's distressed. I looked down the street. Allison was standing on our lawn, hands over her mouth, watching as FBI agents carried boxes of documents from our house. What happens to her? I asked. That depends, Lawson said. On what? On what she knew, and on what you want. 15 years of marriage. Good years at the beginning, before whatever this had become. I watched Allison for a long moment. I just want what's right, I said finally. The federal case moved quickly. Kyle and Daniels both took plea deals, implicating each other and several other conspirators in what turned out to be a 5-state operation targeting military families. Allison maintained she knew nothing about the larger scheme. Said Kyle had convinced her I was hiding money, planning to leave her with nothing. Said the refinance was his idea, she'd just gone along with it. Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, she agreed to a settlement. Full restitution of the stolen funds, forfeiture of any claim to the house or my military pension, a signed confession about the forgery. In exchange, I didn't press charges. The divorce was finalized 7 months after that email from Baghdad. No fault. Clean break. All things considered. On the day the last paperwork was signed, I got a call from Agent Lawson. Kyle Matthews was sentenced today. 9 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Daniels got 14. Thought you'd want to know. Thank you, I said. There's something else, she added. We found evidence they've done this to 13 other military families. Your case helped us build the pattern. Those families might get their money back because of you. The lives we touch. The ripples we create. After we hung up, I sat on the porch of my rental apartment, watching the sunset, thinking about those other families, other men who deployed thinking their homes and marriages were safe, only to come back to emptiness. I hadn't planned on being the one to bring down Kyle and Daniel's operation. I just wanted what was mine. But sometimes things work out in ways you don't expect. My phone buzzed. Text from Allison. I never meant for things to end this way. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Some bridges can't be rebuilt. A year later, I sold the house. Couldn't stand to live in it anymore. Too many memories. Too much betrayal in those walls. I used the money to buy a small cabin outside of Bend, Oregon. 2 bedrooms, 12 acres of land. A stream running behind it. No neighbors for miles. I took early retirement from the Army. 23 years was enough. I'd given enough. I got a dog, a golden retriever named Riley. Started doing carpentry work for locals. Nothing fancy, but it kept my hands busy and paid the bills. My military pension covered the rest. Sometimes I thought about Allison, wondered where she ended up. Tyler heard she'd moved back to her hometown in Washington, working at another law firm. Starting over, I guess. I didn't hate her anymore, didn't feel much of anything about her, to be honest. She'd made her choices, and so had I. We all have to live with the decisions we make. One evening, I received a letter from a woman in San Diego. Her husband was in the Marines, deployed when Kyle and Daniels tried to run their scheme on her. The FBI had given her my name as part of the case. You don't know me, she wrote, but you saved our home. Thank you for fighting back when it would have been easier to just walk away. I read it twice, then pinned it to my refrigerator. Some days, when the silence got too loud or the memories too sharp, I'd look at that letter and remember that something good had come from all of it. Last I heard, Ka was still in prison. Daniel's too. The system worked, for once. As for me, I was finding my way forward, one quiet day at a time, building something new, something that couldn't be stolen or forged or betrayed. Something that was just mine.